Ladies, welcome to the second part of our Empowering Women series. My name is Jennifer Kelly, and I'm part of the adult ministries team here at Mission. And many of you might not know the name or the face behind I Said This, You Heard That. And really, it's my great honor and privilege to be able to introduce you today to Kathleen Edelman. Kathleen, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, we
I
are
am the
so
blue, so I
excited.
don't mind being behind the scenes.
Yes, I'm so glad you're blue. I'm a red yellow. I was 1 point off of each other. So, um, we just really can't say how thankful we are. I know you come with over 25 years of experience in coaching in the art of communication. And as you know, Joel has been walking us through the individual temperaments. And as a church, we have had the unique opportunity to be able to journey through this amazing workbook. In fact, the leadership team here at Mission have found such immense value in the curriculum and in the content that we haven't just asked you to speak to the women here at Mission, but you've been able to speak at the leadership series with Joel.
Yeah.
I think that's just a lot of different reasons, but honestly, there is not a more critical time given our current cultural climate, considering the highly divisive political season we find ourselves in and all of the ramifications that COVID-19 brings into our home and our schools and our workplaces, where understanding our individual wiring and our temperaments, not only that of ourselves, but of others, is more important right now. So, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Let's just go ahead and dive right in and get into some
Sure.
of the specifics.
Okay.
It's so most of us, it's so easy. All of us focus in on our weaknesses. We go
Mhm.
straight, we want to take that test, we go to our temperament, and we look and we automatically see, oh man, these are all the different ways in which I am just failing.
Mhm.
It even though it should feel really great to understand the good ways in which God has wired us as well. And we all some of us like to focus in on the positive traits that define us more
Yeah.
so than the weaknesses. But you encourage us to lean into those weaknesses and get to know them. Someone
Yes.
who is a high yellow, a
Yeah.
sanguine, or a red, choleric, like myself, we don't sometimes understand how we can come across in a group setting. And
Mhm.
some of the descriptions that you define in the weaknesses for red yellow are phony or domineering and vain. And I think as women, those weaknesses can, not unfortunately, they can just be so highlighted, but we can use them against each other.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
in really awful ways. So, can you explain why is it that we should kind of lean into those weaknesses in regard to our own personal temperaments, even more importantly than our strengths?
Yeah. Well, and God was so intentional with this
Mm,
because first thing we want to know, and I want all the women to be empowered out there to know
mm,
that God created you in your temperament perfect. So the first step is understanding that. The first step is understanding how did God design me? And
mm,
then what does that look like? And then how can I apply it to become the best version of me?
okay.
My best version of my authentic self. And then when you're here and you're staying in your strengths authentically, it's not about looking side to side anymore and comparing yourself to other women or other people. It's looking up and honoring who God designed you to be, right? So
Yes.
as yellow for you, you said that most of the time yellows don't like to talk about anything that's bad or sad, right? But I'm telling you, when people come in my office, especially women, a lot of times they'll open that book and they will immediately look at the weaknesses. And they
Mm,
will say, "Oh, yes, I do that. Yes, I do." Or they'll circle, I have them circle it because the weaknesses are keeping you from your authentic self. And they'll
yeah.
be like, "Oh, I could just circle this whole list," right?
Mm,
The What God's saying is, I designed you perfectly in your strengths. So this is where I want you functioning out of. So one thing, once we understand our weaknesses, then we can utilize our strengths. because God intentionally gave us those weaknesses so that we would know strengths. We know loud because we know quiet. We know light because we know dark. If you didn't know the weaknesses you struggled with, you wouldn't know that you could be inspiring or encouraging or a great leader or thoughtful and compassionate or kind and a great listener. Remember, the one thing that all the temperaments share is selfishness. And we
So
are
good.
trying to move from selfishness to servitude. Remember, God came to serve and not be served. So our first step, ladies, is to identify the weaknesses that you are living in and you are allowing to get too big. Because it first starts with you and God. And here's where we have to understand ourselves. And we have to remember, words become thoughts and thoughts become action. So what self-talk are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself you're bossy? Are you telling yourself you're moody? Are you telling yourself anything's out of the weakness? Because that's not how God designed you, nor is that how he sees you. So we have to start here. So then we're filling our own love tank. We're filling our own innate needs, which are crucial. And then we have something to give another person. So what happens, this is what I would love the women to do, is I would love them to get the book and do an activity that's in the book that says, I have a tendency to, but I'm going to choose. So when you're feeling like I have a tendency, for your example, for you, I have a tendency to interrupt. I'm going to choose to listen. Or if you're red, I have a tendency to be bossy, but I'm going to choose to delegate well. Whatever the circumstance requires of you, it's your choice, a strength or a weakness. And when you're staying here in your strengths and saying, I have a tendency to do this, nobody's making me do this. I have a choice. I have a tendency to do this, but I'm going to choose this. Then you are empowering your own person.
I love
and
that.
when somebody else says something against your innate needs, that's unwholesome. Remember, Jen, everything I do is off Ephesians 4:29. So you have to know your own innate needs. I have to know that my innate needs are sensitivity, support, space, silence, safety. So I have to know that and love myself how God designed me, not in an arrogant way, but how God designed me. And that way, if anybody else says anything unwholesome against my innate needs, it's my choice. I'm wearing the armor of God. And that fiery arrow can come in, but it is going to bounce right off because that's not how God designed me to be. And then you walk away. Do you see?
Yes,
It
absolutely.
is empowering to know how God designed you.
Yes,
So I have a
Kathleen,
tendency to, and then walk away or
that is
choose something.
so good. Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. We, in this specific series, we really want to empower women, right? To encourage and build each other up. And so much of that happens in the words that we choose to use in our everyday interactions. You write and talk a lot in the book about people with different temperaments, that we speak and hear entirely different languages. So me as a yellow, you as a blue, a lot of times we need to work really hard to understand each other right. What I think is absolutely fun or exciting, my coworker or my girlfriend, right, who's a blue, would think it's absolutely atrocious and really tell me, hey, Jen, that's probably not a good idea and it's not going to work. Or I think about myself as a mom and my 3 kiddos. I have 3 girls at home. And when I get into rush mode, right, we have to be out the door. I'm starting to bark orders. That red temperament really comes out quickly. Do you have your homework? Did you get your teeth brushed? Did you make your bed? Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. We have to be out the door in 5 minutes. And my really green daughter ends up in tears. And that was never my intention. I don't want my daughter to cry before she goes to school. So how does knowing the temperaments of those that are closest to us, our friends, our family, our coworkers, really change the dynamic of our relationships for the better?
Well, the first thing you want to know is most miscommunication is not intentional. It's just that I am speaking through my own lens and you're speaking through your own lens. So again, just like we did that little thing, when you talk as a yellow, I hear as a blue. And then I talk and you hear. So what the Temperaments is designed to do is get rid of this gray area so that I can choose words that can love you better. So I want women to even think about this. I'm now your friend, right? So I want to say, Kathleen, no unwholesome words come out of my mouth. Only what builds Jen up according to her needs and benefit all who listen. Do that with your daughter. What's your daughter's name?
Caitlin.
Caitlin. Jen, no unwholesome words come out of your mouth. Only what builds Caitlin up according to her needs. So there's the key, is understanding what are the innate needs. Like I know for you, for the yellow, it's approval, acceptance, attention, affection. For the reds, it's loyalty, sense of control, appreciation, credit for work. For your beautiful daughter, it's harmony, feeling of worth, lack of stress and respect. For me, it's safety, sensitivity, support, space, and silence. I am telling these women, you will be empowered if you understand this one chart, because it will change every single conversation, especially if you look at it through the framework of Ephesians 4:29. So just picture that morning again. If you were thinking harmony, lack of stress, respect, and that was the first thought, that would change from a selfish and an unintentional miscommunication, selfish place to a servitude place. Maybe you would help your daughter get ready the day before. Maybe you, for respect, would ask her her opinion or idea of how the morning would look. Maybe she would want a lack of stress by keeping her outfit ready or packing her backpack the day before. It's understanding how that person is wired and motivated. Because listen, communication, most people are just talking at each other. And that's why so many fiery arrows are flying. Because remember, God says on your tongue lays the power of life or death. So are you speaking life words over yourself? Are you speaking life words over your spouse or your children? We've got to pause before we let, which is in Ephesians 4:29, circle that word. Do not let any unwholesome words. That doesn't mean cuss words. That means anything that works against the temperament, right? We want to pause for a minute and say, are my words life words to the person I'm speaking to? So communication is the exchange of thoughts and emotions. The art of communication, which is what I would love all the women there to get, is every word out of your mouth be a gift to the person that you're speaking to. If we could understand how powerful God said words are, life or death, I think we would use words differently, not only to ourselves, but to other people, right?
Absolutely.
So know those innate needs, know what you are, but know who you're talking to. And I'm telling you, it will change every conversation.
Yeah, it does. A lot of it goes back so much to our innate needs. You know, scripture makes it clear that each and every one of us is uniquely and wonderfully made. And I truly believe, and I'm very passionate about, Kathleen, the fact that every single woman holds an influential voice that is engaged in her God-given setting, whether that be in the home, the school, the workplace, a political party, social gathering, you name it. There's a million different ways in which women are engaged in conversation right now. Each woman not only bears the image of God, but she has the potential to influence anybody, either good or bad. So, understanding our natural predisposition in the way in which we think, talk, speak, and act just seems like a really healthy thing to do right now. And I think of all my lady friends, a lot of us women have really big thoughts and really big feelings about so much that is happening in the world around us right now. You write in this book about being fluent in all four temperaments. How does truly understanding how each one of us is personally wired have the potential to change our conversations for the good, especially when so many of those conversations right now, over Zoom, in person, with masks on or off, seem really difficult to navigate? And they don't just seem really difficult to navigate right now, but they really seem susceptible to a negative outcome.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing is we have to understand that you can control no one, but you can influence everyone, right?
Mm.
Then you want to understand that, are you speaking from your heart or from your mind? We want to say things that are pure hearted without expectation. So as you become fluent, and again, how do you become fluent? God didn't say do a witness, he said be a witness. And I love to say that because I don't want the women doing the temperaments and then putting it on the shelf. I'm wanting them to have it become part of who they are. Because when you have it become part of you, who you are, then it would be Jen, like if you spoke German and I spoke French.
Mm-hmm.
The only way I could love you better would be to be fluent in German, right?
Okay.
I wouldn't even hesitate to learn that language. We want to be fluent in the people that are around us for one reason only, to love them better. I want to be able to speak your language again, so I can lift you up according to your needs. We want to do that in our strengths, though, because as these circumstances come in, you're not going to change the circumstances. You're not going to change the pandemic or people losing jobs or getting jobs or having babies. That's all going to come in. But what we have a choice to do is when those circumstances come in, are you over here in your flesh choosing your weakness? Or are you over here in the Holy Spirit choosing your strength?
So good.
Because if you're here, the circumstance is going to control you. And it can become toxic. And the conversations can become selfish. But if you are over here, you will maneuver through it. And you will only speak life words, building others up according to their needs. And my whole thing is for people to speak kindly to each other, just as Jesus did when he walked the earth. There's really no reason, even in a debate or a negotiation, do we have to speak unkindly to another person. That's when people don't understand the difference between arguing and negotiating. Arguing can become toxic. And so that's why knowing those strengths and weaknesses are crucial. Knowing the different languages of all the temperaments is crucial, because you want to be able to be fluent and leave that person feeling known and understood, even if you disagree with them. So you want them to feel that.
Yeah, that's it right there. Making sure the way in which we communicate so that other person leaving, even if we disagree with them, is known and understood. So a backup to that question, because I think so many of us women we're in really difficult conversations and situations. What are some practical ways that we can extend grace, right? When we find ourselves in those uncomfortable situations, when we're starting to get rubbed the wrong way, or that person just said something and I can feel the tension in my face rising and I'm literally about to get set off. What are some practical ways that we can just stop, pause, put into practice Ephesians 4:29 when that seems like the very last thing really that we want to do, or maybe even impossible?
Well, and the thing is, it's never impossible. Ever, ever, ever is it impossible. But you do have to think about, again, your wiring as a yellow-red is polar opposite of mine. Okay. And even you saying it's about to set me off like that would never even come out of my mouth, because I would be so concerned about processing the right thing and saying something right before I said it, that quickness of the response usually doesn't happen for a green or a blue. So the first thing I have to really stress is understanding your own wiring, so that during that pause, you can say, what is my motivation here? Is it getting my point across? Is it making them understand me? Is it fear that they might not like what I'm saying as a blue, or fear that they won't like me as a green? Okay. You have to know what your core motives are. Then let's say something does happen. This is where I want people to understand, especially women. We love to say, she hurt my feelings.
Yes.
She offended me. She made me mad. Okay. We could have all 4 temperaments in a room, and somebody could come into a room and say something really harsh. Every single temperament may respond differently. One might be offended, one might be angry, one might be hurt, one might be unaffected. So hence, who's in charge of the emotional response? We are, not the person who said it. So we have to pause right there. You can even say, wow, that stung a little bit. Or, gosh, I could choose to be offended by that. Or I could choose to be hurt by that. But that's our choice. So that's one thing we have to look is, are we pausing enough to say, how am I going to not react to this? We're not reacting to the what. We're going to learn to respond to the why. Why am I feeling like I want to defend myself or argue with that person? Then the other second part I really want everybody to master is this question right here. Say there is an argument between somebody says something and it's getting a little heated. I want you to stop and say, what part do I play? We're very quick to point and say, she did that, or he said that, or it was too cold out, or I didn't have enough food, or I was tired, whatever. I want you to say, as women, we are so influential. What part did I play? And then say this, what could I have said or done differently? Okay. A lot of times while we're pointing a finger, and a lot of women have heard this before, when you're pointing a finger, 3 fingers are pointing back at you. Right? So we want to say, what part did I play? And what could I have done or said differently? How could I really put into play? And did I really put into play Ephesians 4:29? Did I lift Jen up according to her needs? Did I speak in a yellow-red language that she felt loved? How could I have said that differently and maybe took that tension away? Usually unnecessary tension. It's selfish.
It really is. It's so unnecessary and selfish. But you said so many good things right there. Understanding our innate needs keeps coming up, but being able to be honest in the moment of conflict. Why am I feeling this way? Why do I want to react in this way? Is it helpful? But what part am I playing in this? Taking personal responsibility where we're at, and then what could I have said differently?
Yes. So because when those emotions come up and you ask yourself the motive, you want it, and hopefully it's going to fall on the side of your strengths, not the side of your weaknesses. Because remember, in every interaction with somebody, our responsibility is that that person somehow gets a glimpse of Christ through us. So we have to think about that when we're representing him in front of another person. Are we representing him in the best way that he designed us to be?
Yeah, we are God image bearers, and we have that influence to speak good or to speak bad in every single situation that we're in.
And look, Jen, he even took that from good to bad to life or death. I mean, that's pretty serious. He didn't say on your tongue lays the power of good or bad. He said on your tongue lays the power of life or death.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, women especially with the self-talk. That we can do a whole series on self-talk and what we're saying to ourselves as women and mothers and wives. I'm just telling you, what you put in your heart, it says right there, evil you build up or good you build up comes out of your mouth. So we, above all else, have to guard our hearts as women.
Yeah, it's so true. Even before just talking to you, the
Mhm.
whole way I'm putting prayers on the front of my notebooks and reviewing the questions I'm asking, because the whole time we think in our minds, oh, she's going to think this question's ridiculous, or you're not good enough, or all of these different thoughts that kind of just like bombard us all the time, right? We have to put how God sees us, how God has called us. He has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of sound mind. All that truth that needs to just completely immerse ourselves in, so that we can come and, when a moment of tension or conflict comes up, be able to stop, recollect Ephesians 4:21, and choose to respond in the right way.
And be fluent.
Yeah.
That's what the whole thing is. The more you put that in your satchel, the more it becomes your default. And
Yeah.
it does, and then you get to the point where you're not even really thinking, you're just saying it. I like to look at the one verse where it says, God, love your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself, right? I
Yeah.
love to explain this, especially to young women. God is saying, Jen, when you see yourself like I see you, when you see how perfectly I designed you in your temperament, when you see what your strengths are and you believe it, only then do you have something to give your neighbor.
That's so good.
Not about
Oh,
taking her casserole.
no, Kathleen, thank you. Preach. You have a word for us today. All right. As women,
Yes.
living in America, just is really difficult. The realities that we are bombarded with daily messages about our body image, about our finances, about our relationships, sexuality. I mean, the list goes on and on. These messages are not only deeply convoluted and distorted, but they seem bent on particularly targeting women. So it comes as no surprise, right? As we're starting to figure out our innate needs, which you
Mm-hmm.
talk about in regards to our personal temperaments, that there's a little bit of confusion that can arise around acceptance, approval,
Mm-hmm.
affection, and attention. So, my
Mm-hmm.
question is, how does learning how we are hardwired help us to fight feelings of shame, regret, and fear, when so many of us women, we don't just struggle with those things on a daily basis, but we literally struggle with them on a moment by moment by moment
Mm-hmm.
basis?
Mm-hmm. And remember, the dark side only needs a little crack to come in and sour the dough of the bread, right? So, this is where renewing your mind constantly and being in that center circle with God is crucial, because it doesn't matter how beautiful fall day it is today, it's the world. And the world is going to try to take you down. So you either believe in the power of the Holy Spirit and you put on that armor, like in Ephesians, my favorite book. But remember, at the bottom of the putting on the armor, there's one part of the armor that a lot of women miss, and it says to pray. We have to pray to ignite the armor, right? To make it work. But again, who are you honoring when you we have a tendency as women to say, oh, I'm going to honor my husband, or I'm going to honor my children to honor God. No,
Don't.
you got to honor God. And in honoring God, you will speak more kindly to your husband, and you will speak more kindly to your children, because you're honoring God. And you know what? The girl that lives down the street, she's looking, we're not looking sideways. There's no comparison there. If she happens to be a good friend, then you are building each other up according to your needs. Then you are spreading the gospel out into the world. But when those things start to rear their head, we've got to say, get behind me. That is not how God designed me. You can say, like, oh, that stung, or I'm struggling with this, or give me strength. But please try to see how God designed you in those strengths. Have them ready so that you can know, hey, He designed me to be compassionate and empathetic. Even though I'm fearful of going into this new crowd as a blue, He's designed me to do these things. And I'm going to believe it. See, we have a tendency too, especially as mom and women, to say I love you a lot, even to our girlfriends. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to ask you to say, I believe in you.
Oh,
I love you, Jen, but I believe in you. I
yeah.
believe that you can be inspiring. I believe you can be a dynamic leader. It doesn't matter what the world says or what that person says. I know how God designed you, and I'm here to be loyal to you and appreciate how he designed you.
Mm.
So if we're talking and filling each other's love tanks like that, there's little room to go. I bet you a lot of women out there right now are going, what are you talking about? I would say probably half the people listening, especially if you're women, are functioning on a reserve tank. We want to
Absolutely.
function on our love tank, and our love tank starts with believing in who God designed you to be and staying there and becoming fluent in it and living in our strengths. If you feed your weaknesses, they're going to grow. If you feed your strengths, guess what? They're going to grow.
Yeah.
So this is where we want to encourage each other and empower each other to be.
Yeah. Kathleen, I
Yes.
cannot begin to even tell you how great it was just to have this conversation. It's funny because I read your bio, and in it, you said your one goal in life was to help make other people kind, speak kind words to one
Yeah.
another. And you didn't just do that theoretically here for us today or theologically, but you gave us very practical
Mm-hmm.
steps in ways that we can learn about ourselves, but know our innate needs, know who we are in Christ, and then be able to love those around us in the way
Mm-hmm.
that they'll be able to receive it and take it. So
Exactly.
thank you so
You're
much for empowering us to do that
Thank
today. I
you.
really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. I'll come back anytime.
Oh, yeah, I would love that. Let's do it now.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.